The medicine dripped drop by drop from the forebag, the cold liquid flowing through the infusion tube into my veins along the back of my hand. I leaned against the bed's cushion, my right hand covering the incision from my minimally invasive surgery. A fine layer of cold sweat forming on my forehead. The hospital room door slammed open with a loud bang, the force causing it to hit the wall's rubber bumper and emit a dull thud. Mark walked in. He was wearing a customized gray suit, his tie slightly askew, his leather shoes making hurried and heavy sounds on the clean PVC floor. Behind him followed his cousin Ethan. Ethan carried a briefcase, wore gold-rimmed glasses, and as soon as he entered, he locked the ward door behind him. "Jennifer, you're finally awake," Mark said, stepping to the bedside, looking down at me with a domineering expression. He didn't even glance at the medical chart hanging by my bed or ask if the surgery went well. Instead, he snatched a document from Ethan's hands and tossed it onto my blanket. I glanced down. On the cover was the title, "Authorization Letter for Full Management Rights of Metropolitan Wine Trading Company. Sign it," Mark said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Filled with command, I lifted my eyes and looked at my husband of 4 years. "I've only just come out of anesthesia for less than 2 hours. What is this? To lighten your burden." Mark stood beside the bed, hands in his suit pockets, chin slightly raised. "The doctor said you need rest. The company gets dozens of calls and dozens of contracts every day. How can you handle it in your condition? Ethan has already prepared the documents. You're transferring full authority over management and the company seal to me. From today on, you rest and recover. Handled the daily business affairs will be mine." Ethan, standing nearby, adjusted his glasses, took out a Montblanc pen from his briefcase, and gently offered it to me, a professional yet fake smile on his face. "Jennifer, Mark is only concerned about you. Being supportive with your spouse is what you should do. I've already notarized and registered this power of attorney document. Once you sign, it takes effect immediately." I didn't take the pen. Instead, using my non-infused left hand, I flipped through the pages one by one. The only sound in the room was the soft rustling of paper. Mark's breathing grew heavier. His gaze remained fixed on my fingers. On the third page, nestled among dense legal jargon, was an unobtrusive line of text. "The agent has the right to dispose of, mortgage, or transfer assets owned by the principal without obtaining the principal's additional written consent." I turned to that page, and my nail scratched sharply across the line, producing a harsh sound. "To lighten my burden." I looked up, meeting Mark's gaze. "Metropolitan Wine Trading Company is my independent capital and personal property. Just last month, we acquired the exclusive agency rights for the Chateau Lafite in Bordeaux, France. The first shipment worth $5 million will be arriving next week. Now you're asking me to sign a document granting you the right to dispose of the assets. This is calling it lightening my load." Mark's face immediately darkened. His eyelid twitched. "Jennifer, I'm your husband. Would I risk hurting you? Right now, all the suppliers are pressing for signature. If you stay here like this and delay progress, can you afford that loss? Suppliers pressing for signature." I pressed the overhead call button. "What are you doing?" Mark's face changed instantly, and he reached out to grab my wrist. I sidestepped, but the movement pulled at the incision, sending a sharp pain through me that made me gasp for breath, but I kept staring at him. A few seconds later, the nurse pushed the door open, because the door was locked from the inside. She twisted it several times from outside. I shouted loudly, "Please come in, the door isn't locked." The nurse pushed the door open, her eyes darting curiously toward the 3 men in the room. "Miss Nurse," I said calmly and clearly, propped against my pillow, "please call the hospital security," and also dialed the emergency number. These 2 men forcibly entered my VIP room and are compelling me under duress to sign a property transfer document against my will. "Jennifer," Mark growled, his forehead veined with tension. He turned quickly to the nurse. "It's a misunderstanding. I am her husband. We're just discussing family matters." Our family matters meant to involve a lawyer. And locking the ward door, I glanced at the nurse. then pointed at Ethan's briefcase. Mr. Ethan here isn't even our company's legal counsel. He's Mark's personal legal advisor for his chronically loss-making tech firm. Miss Nurse, please call security immediately. The nurse grasped the situation instantly, her expression turning serious. She stepped out quickly and began calling security over her walkie-talkie. The temperature in the room plunged to ice. Ethan looked flustered. He tucked away his pen, then lowered his voice to Mark. Mark, this is a private hospital. Every corner has surveillance. If this escalates to the police, your reputation will be ruined, and the document's legality will be questioned. Mark shot Ethan a venomous glare, then turned back to me. His eyes no longer held the feigned warmth he usually wore, they now brimmed with naked malice. Jennifer, you've really outdone yourself, Mark said as he stepped to the bedside. He bent down, whispering only for us two to hear. You thought you could keep control over this company. You're lying here, helpless. You'd better pray you never need to ask for my help. I don't need to pray, I only need to protect what's mine. I stared right into his eyes, my voice flat and unyielding. Good. Very good. Mark gave a cold chuckle and straightened up. At that moment, heavy footsteps and the static of walkie-talkies echoed down the hallway. Ethan grabbed his briefcase and quickly pulled open the door. Mark adjusted his suit jacket, not even bothering to glance back at me, and hurried out with Ethan, disappearing down the corridor in a rush. I watched their retreating figures vanish behind the door. Pressing gently on my abdomen, a small surge of blood trickled back up the foreline. I lifted my left hand, adjusted the flow rate myself, and reached for the phone on the bedside table. The screen was clear, text messages from Mark asking about my surgery. I opened WeChat, found the profile picture of Clara, Deputy General Manager and CFO of Metro Liquor Trading, and sent a voice message. Clara, change the access passwords for the company's financial system and core database immediately. Also, check if Mark's tech company has recently experienced a major cash flow shortfall. Focus especially on any overlapping supply chains with our company. After putting the phone down, I closed my eyes, let the cold liquid flow back into my body. 3 days later, I forced my way out of the hospital. A taxi pulled up in front of the villa. I got out, clutching my aching abdomen, each step sending sharp pains through the wound like tiny blades tearing at my flesh. The sunlight was painfully bright. I took a deep breath and walked toward the heavy, black anti-explosion door of my house. I raised my right hand and pressed the 6-digit password I'd memorized perfectly onto the smart lock's touchscreen. Beep, incorrect password. The cold, synthetic voice of the machine echoed unnaturally loudly in the quiet corridor. I frowned and entered the code again. The screen flashed red with an error message. Stop trying. I had the password changed long ago. A mocking laugh came from behind me. I turned around and saw my mother-in-law, Helen, sitting in a rattan chair in the front yard. In her hand was a sharp pair of floral shears. With a crisp snip, she cut off my carefully cultivated double-flowered rose, the one I had nurtured for exhibition, and tossed it carelessly to the ground. By her feet, a large pile of broken branches and wilted leaves already lay. I released the grip on the door lock, stood straight, and calmly looked at her. Helen, this is my house. The property deed lists only my name. Who gave you the right to change my door's password and damage my private property? Helen slowly set down the shears, stood up, and brushed off the leaves clinging to her clothes as she sauntered toward me, stepping over the precious flowers and plants. Your house. You married Mark. What's yours belongs to him, and what's his is our whole family's. With a taunting gesture, she pulled a neatly folded A4 paper from her pocket and thrust it toward me. Since you're out of the hospital, sign this, and let's set some new rules. I didn't reach for it. She slapped the paper against the anti-explosion door. At the top, in bold letters, it read, Family Mutual Living Rules. First, starting today, you must transfer your entire monthly salary and company dividends into the account I designate. I will manage all household expenses. Helen jabbed the paper with her sharp nails, her voice sharp. Second, Since you've had your surgery, stop being melodramatic. From now on, you'll be responsible for cleaning, cooking, and doing the laundry. Third, your wine company immediately ceded 50 of your shares to Mark's sister Chloe. She's a woman working outside, facing so much hardship. She needs a stable foundation. I stared at the absurd sheet of paper and let out a bitter laugh. And if I refuse to sign? I asked, eyeing her. If you refuse, Helen sneered, cross-armed, disdainfully sizing me up, then you won't be getting through this door. Mark said you're weak now. Without our care, you'd starve. Do the smart thing, hand over your salary card. Or else, you can spend tonight on the sidewalk. I looked at her, face ticked with greed and arrogance, said not a word. I took out my phone, dialed the community property management staff, and pressed speaker. Manager Chen, this is Jennifer. Unit 12. I said calmly, each word clear. Oh. Ms. Jennifer, are you back from the hospital? How may I assist you? The manager's polite voice came from the other end. I'm standing at my front door, I said, locking eyes with Helen, whose expression twitched slightly. And a person of unknown identity has forcibly entered my private front yard, maliciously damaging my imported landscaping worth tens of thousands of dollars, and changed the password of my smart door lock, barring me from my own legal property. Please send all security guards here immediately, and inform the police report unauthorized entry. Enormous theft value. What? Someone broke in. We're coming right away. Jennifer, you're crazy. Helen suddenly panicked, shrieking as she tried to grab my phone. I'm your mother-in-law. You're actually calling the police to arrest me. You ungrateful wretch. I stepped back, avoiding her sharp nails, and hung up the call before immediately dialing another number. Lawyer Lin. It's Jennifer, I said, staring at the fuming Helen, major shareholder of Metro Wine Trading Company. I'm now authorizing you to file a lawsuit immediately against the Smart Lock brand and installation company of the villa under my name, due to their system vulnerabilities and mismanagement. Unauthorized third parties easily altered the owner's password. I demand compensation for the damages and require them to send technicians with a backup lock to change the lock on site within 30 minutes. Understood. Ms. Jennifer, I'll send the legal notice and contact the brand's CEO immediately. Technicians will arrive within 15 minutes. Helen's face turned pale as she listened to the conversation on the phone. She never expected that instead of giving in to keep the peace like I had in the past, I would immediately launch a full-scale legal and forceful response. You insane woman. Mark will never let you go, Helen shouted, pointing at me, her voice trembling slightly with fear and fury. Wait until the police arrive, save those words to explain to them, I said, standing on the steps, looking down at her. Outside the yard, the sound of security guards rushing over and the distant wail of a siren could already be heard. The black limousine came to a slow stop in front of the two Michelin-star restaurant Le Verre. I put on my sunglasses to conceal my pale complexion, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. The wound on my abdomen ached faintly from the long journey under the seatbelt, but I kept my back straight with every step as I walked. Inside the restaurant, the lighting was dim and a rich Baroque melody echoed softly through the air. A waiter respectfully led me to a semi-private booth at the back. Clara was already waiting there. She wore a sharp navy blue business suit, her black hair neatly pulled back. Seeing me enter, she quickly stood and steadied my arm, her gaze settling on my abdomen and her brows furrowing. Jennifer, you just got out of the hospital. You really shouldn't be running around like this, Clara whispered, worry lining her voice. At home, even breathing feels like a burden. Is this place safe? I settled into the seat, placing my handbag beside me. Clara nodded, then pulled a stack of documents sealed in a leather envelope from her Hermes handbag and pushed them across the table. As you instructed. I accessed the underlying financial records of the company's system overnight, and also reached out to a friend at the commercial bank. Take a look at this. I tore open the seal and pulled out the reports. Mark's company, Aurora Tech, has been facing a broken capital chain for 3 consecutive quarters. Last month, he even used his apartment still under mortgage as a second mortgage. Clara pointed to several large transactions on the report. Worse still, he exploited the cross-supply chain agreement between your two companies to forge 3 procurement contracts with Metropolis Wine Company, attempting to secure a $4 million credit loan in which the primary guarantor listed was your name. I studied the forged contracts bearing my signature, my fingers turning white from gripping the papers too hard. If this loan is approved and Aurora Tech goes bankrupt, the entire $4 million debt will fall on me and Metropolis, I said, my tone cold, unreadable. Exactly, that's his shell game. He wants to use your company to go down with him, Clara said, her voice tense. Just then, the sharp click of high heels on wooden flooring broke the booth's silence. Oh, look who it is, me dear sister-in-law. Just out of surgery and supposed to be bedridden, waiting to die. A shrill voice cut in. I lifted my head and saw Chloe, Mark's sister, standing beside our table in 10-centimeter red stilettos, the handle of a brand new Chanel bag dangling from her arm. That bag was a limited edition one I had asked a friend to bring back from Paris last month, still unopened and kept in a closet at the villa. Chloe sat down on the empty seat without invitation, snatched my coffee cup and took a sip before fixing me with a taunting stare. Jennifer, Mom cried all afternoon on the phone, saying you actually had the cops and the property management go after her. You really are something, but I bet you won't be smiling for too long, me brother already said. Metropolis will be mine eventually. Be a good girl and hand over the purchase invoice for this bag today, or I can't get it serviced at the store. I said nothing, just watching her with steady eyes, her hand holding what should have been mine. Chloe, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, that bag is worth 12,000. My closet has 24-hour infrared monitoring and pressure-sensitive cabinets. You took it directly from my closet this morning, didn't you? So what if I did? Chloe rolled her eyes, dismissive. I'm your sister-in-law. What's wrong with borrowing one of your bags? My brother said your things are my family's. Fine. I turned to Clara. Clara, last week, Metropolitan Wine Company purchased high-value commercial theft insurance for all employees. Personally owned property is also covered under the policy. Clara immediately understood, pulled out a business card from her folder, and handed it to me. Yes, Jennifer, our contact is the claims manager at Allianz Insurance. Any case involving over $10,000 is considered a major theft. You, who are you trying to scare? Chloe's face changed, and she nervously tried to hide her bag behind her back. I don't have time to scare you. I suddenly reached out with my left hand, grabbed the chain of the Chanel bag, and yanked it hard. Shocked, Chloe stumbled forward, her chest slamming into the corner of the table. Ah, she screamed. At the same time, I picked up the glass of ice water just served to the table, filled with ice cubes, and poured it without expression all over her face. Her delicate makeup was instantly ruined. Black mascara mixed with foundation streamed down her cheeks, leaving her looking utterly disheveled. Jennifer, you crazy bitch, Chloe shrieked, jumping to her feet and lunging toward me. But the restaurant manager and 2 strong waiters had already hurried over and quickly restrained her. Madam, please stay calm and don't disturb other guests, the manager said sternly. She hit me. She poured ice water on me. Can't you see? Chloe screamed hysterically. I calmly wiped the water from my hands with a tissue, stood up and looked at the disheveled Chloe. Manager, what this lady is holding is a private item I've just reported stolen. I've already notified the police. They're on their way. For the sake of your restaurant's reputation, I suggest you detain her here until the police verify the ownership of the bag. Hearing the word police, and seeing the surrounding diners point and whisper, Chloe finally panicked. She dropped the bag, barely wiping the water off her face, and fled out of the restaurant, covering her face. I sat back down, threw the soaked Chanel bag into the nearby trash can, and turned to Clara, who was recording the financial report. Clara, I said, Looking at the financial documents on the table. Notify the bank we will not provide any guarantees for Aurora Tech. Also, send all evidence of the forged signatures to the Economic Crimes Division. The dazzling crystal chandelier illuminated the 2,000 square meter banquet hall like broad daylight. The sound of a live saxophone performance echoed across the marble floor, while waiters carried trays of champagne, weaving through the crowd of elegantly dressed guests. I wore a custom-tailored deep black mermaid evening gown, with a medical abdominal band tightly wrapped around my stomach to support my wound. The surgical incision from the minimally invasive procedure felt slightly warm under the fabric of the dress, but I walked with extreme stability in 8-centimeter stilettos, my face adorned with a flawless smile. "Jennifer, you look absolutely captivating tonight." Mark's voice came from behind. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, holding 2 glasses of champagne, with a self-satisfied smile on his face. He stepped forward, naturally extending his left arm, signaling for me to take it. I didn't move, just stared at him coldly. "Jennifer, tonight is the annual grand event of the wine industry. The largest distributors in the province and representatives from the Bordeaux region are here. Don't cause a scene here, this doesn't suit your status," Mark said in a barely audible tone, his eyes flashing with a sinister glint, though his smile remained flawless, like a mask. "My status doesn't need your definition," I said, stepping past him and heading straight toward the center of the banquet hall. At that moment, a few key clients of Metro Wine Company, including Mr. Thomas, the head of the province's largest supermarket chain, were gathered at the front, chatting and laughing. Upon seeing us, Mark's eyes lit up, and he quickly followed. Before I could speak, he raised his glass and said to Thomas with a smile, "Mr. Thomas, long time no see. Next week, the first batch of premium wines from Chateau Lafite Rothschild in Bordeaux will arrive. Jennifer and I have already prepared a brand new market promotion plan. Under my full control, Metro Wine Company's future business will surely double." Several distributors nearby nodded in agreement, casting flattering glances toward Mark. "Oh, Mr. Mark is taking full control of Metro Wine Company." Thomas raised an eyebrow, yet his gaze passed over Mark and landed on my face. "Yes, Mr. Thomas. My wife Jennifer has been unwell lately, just underwent surgery. To avoid delaying the company's development, she has signed a power of attorney for both equity and management rights. From now on, all of Metro Wine's business affairs will be managed entirely by me." Mark lied calmly, even pulling out a copy from his pocket and shaking it slightly in front of the crowd. I stared at the forged power of attorney with my signature, a cold smile forming on my lips. "Mark, you're acting quite convincingly." I almost believed it myself. My voice wasn't loud, yet it cut through the noisy chatter clearly. The surrounding guests fell silent instantly, turning their gazes toward us. "Jennifer, you're sick and confused and make jokes in front of guests." Mark's expression flickered, and he reached out to forcibly pull me onto his shoulder, trying to silence me. I took a step back, completely distancing myself from him. "I'm not joking." I pulled out a formal statement sealed with an official stamp from my handbag and handed it to Mr. Thomas. "Mr. Thomas, and all my esteemed partners here, I, Jennifer, as the sole founder and the 100 shareholder legal representative of Metro Wine Trading Company, hereby solemnly declare, I have never signed any power of attorney for equity or management rights. Mr. Mark is not an employee of my company, and therefore has no right to sign any contracts on our behalf." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Jennifer, do you know what you're saying?" Mark's temples bulged with visible veins as he growled in a low, furious voice, his mask cracking completely across his face. "Are you trying to ruin the company's reputation?" "You're the one ruining the reputation," I replied calmly, making a gesture. Clara immediately stepped forward, accompanied by 2 Marriott security officers in black uniforms. "Mr. Thomas, and everyone here, this is a notice of case filing handed to the city's Economic Crime Investigation Unit just now." I displayed the case acceptance notice on my phone for everyone to see. Mr. Mark is suspected of forging our company's official seal and the legal representative's signature, attempting to fraudulently obtain a $4 million loan from the bank using Metropolis Company's credit. The police have officially filed a case and are investigating. Hearing the words loan fraud and case filed, Mr. Thomas's face instantly darkened. He slammed his wine glass down onto the waiter's tray. Mr. Mark, seems your joke tonight went a bit too far, Thomas said coldly, staring at Mark. No, this isn't true. Thomas, listen to me. This is a private property dispute between my wife and me. Jennifer is framing me. Mark stammered, flailing his hands, beads of sweat forming profusely on his forehead. Around him, the distributors who had previously flattered him now stepped back like they were fleeing a plague. Whether it's a frame-up or not, the police will investigate. But right now, you're not welcome here, I said, turning to the two security guards. Gentlemen, this man is suspected of forging contracts and committing commercial fraud. He is not a guest at tonight's banquet. Please escort him out. Mr. Mark, please. The two guards flanked him, their faces expressionless, gesturing for him to leave, under the collective gaze of dozens of eyes filled with disdain, mockery, and shock. Mark locked his gaze on me, his eyes brimming with malice and resentment. But he knew that if he made a scene here, he'd only accelerate his social demise. Jennifer, you'll regret this. We'll see about this. Mark ground his teeth and spat out these words before being swiftly escorted out of the banquet hall by the security staff, departing in a highly abject manner. I reclaimed my gaze, picked up the half-empty glass of red wine on the table, and gracefully raised a small toast to Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, I'm sorry for the embarrassment. Next week, the Lafite wine will arrive. I'll personally bring it to your bonded warehouse. Having a successful partnership. Jennifer, you're truly a tough character, Thomas said with a smile, clinking his glass against mine. The aftermath of the disastrous party had not yet faded. That night, when I returned to the townhouse and pushed open the living room door, I was met with Mark's murderous gaze. He paced like a trapped beast, his forehead veins bulging, with several shattered glass cups scattered across the floor. Upon hearing the door open, he lunged toward me and stopped less than 10 centimeters from my face. Jennifer, you've made a complete fool of me in the industry tonight, Mark whispered, each word grinding out between his teeth. Do you think you've won? Do you think you're in charge here in this house? I stared back coldly, my right hand instinctively touching the faintly aching wound on my abdomen. Mark, if you're just standing here at night to yell at me, I suggest you move out immediately. Move out. This is my house. Mark suddenly let out a nervous laugh, bitter and venomous. He took a step back, looking down at me with a condescending glare, and spoke slowly, each word deliberate. My uncle, my second aunt, my third uncle, and their children, 15 relatives total. I've already informed them. Starting this weekend, they'll all be staying with us for a month. I want them to see how your so-called good wife and mother treats the heroes of my family. I stared at him, barely able to believe my ears. I just had keyhole surgery 3 days ago. The doctor explicitly said I need rest. 15 people. A whole month. Mark, you don't have to care about me, but you can't turn this place into a shelter. Can't you wait until next week? Or until I'm better? Mark leaned in close to my face. His breath reeked of spoiled alcohol, and his eyes were cold, devoid of any warmth. No one will wait for you. In this house, my word is law. Do as I say. Jennifer. He extended his finger and jabbed menacingly into the air just in front of my injured abdomen. They'll arrive tomorrow. You better have dinner ready on time. Otherwise, I guarantee you won't survive even the winery business. With a disgusted snort, he turned and marched upstairs, slamming the door so hard the house trembled. I stood in the empty living room, staring at the broken glass on the floor. I didn't cry. Not even a flicker of anger. I simply pulled out my phone and sent Clara a message. Pack everything we've gathered at the legal department today, including the property deed for the villa. Also, book the city's top-tier family asset evaluation and cleaning group. Have them come to the villa at 9 a.m. tomorrow, on the weekend. As morning sunlight first crept into the entryway, the shrill doorbell and uproar outside exploded into chaos. I sat calmly on the living room's single armchair, holding a warm glass of lemon water. Behind me stood two professional asset appraisers in black suits, wearing ID badges, and 4 strong, muscular cleaning staff pushing professional cleaning and recording equipment. Open up. Open the door. Jennifer's pretending to be dead inside again. Helen's signature piercing voice screamed outside the door. I gave a slight nod. A security guard pulled open the thick blast-proof door. In an instant, a black mass of people surged in like a locust swarm. Wow, this is the mansion Mark paid top dollar for. So impressive. Look at that carpet, must have cost a fortune. Irwa, take off your dirty shoes quick. Don't stain it. Oh well, never mind. We're staying here anyway, just step right on it. Bride, look at this blue and white porcelain bottle in the entryway. Definitely an antique. Perfect to take back to my room. Uncle, aunt, third uncle, and the children covered in mud and snack crumbs carried bags of all sizes, chattering and shoving as they instantly filled the originally neat and elegant entryway to the brim. Mark also came downstairs at this moment, wearing a smug smile on his face. He opened his arms to welcome his relatives. Uncle, aunt, you're finally here. Treat this place like your own home. Don't stand on ceremony. Oh, Jennifer, are you still sitting there acting like some young mistress? Aunt sneered as soon as she saw me sitting motionless on the sofa, rolling her eyes sharply. The elders traveled such a long way here by train, and you don't even know to pour them a glass of water. What? Just because you became a small business owner, you've forgotten to respect your elders. The 15 relatives immediately stopped what they were doing. More than a dozen pairs of unfriendly eyes, filled with greed and scrutiny, all fell on me at once. Standing among his relatives, Mark looked at me provocatively, as if silently saying with his eyes, "See, this is what happens when you refuse to listen to me." I slowly stood up and elegantly adjusted my dress. I stepped over the colorful suitcases scattered across the floor and walked to the boundary between the entryway and the living room, blocking their attempts to continue rushing inside. Everyone, welcome to my private property. My voice was clear and loud, instantly overpowering all the noise. Your private property. This is my son's house. Helen, my mother-in-law, screamed as she rushed forward and pointed at my nose. I ignored her. Instead, I stepped aside, revealing the two professional property appraisers standing behind me with expressionless faces. This is Mr. Lee and Mr. Wang from Puhua Asset Appraisal Firm. I calmly introduced them to everyone. 10 minutes before you stepped into this house, they had already completed a systematic assessment of all the furniture, appliances, artwork, and renovation value inside this villa, and carried out a full house 3D scan for archival purposes. At present, the total valuation of the entire property is $2,300,000 US. I took a stack of freshly printed pink booklets from the appraisers, one for each person, and placed them directly into their hands. This is the temporary residence and property damage compensation agreement for luxury homes. It contains detailed records of the original condition and market value of every vase and every carpet. From this moment onward, if any item in this house suffers unnatural wear, stains, or damage, I will directly issue a lawyer's letter demanding that the person responsible and their legal guardian pay compensation at 3 times the assessed value. I pointed toward the newly installed miniature cameras at the 4 corners of the living room, the top of the hallway, and the entrance to the kitchen, each blinking with a faint blue light, to ensure clear determination of responsibility. All public areas of this villa have been equipped with 24-hour full coverage surveillance with no blind spots. The footage will be uploaded in real time to the cloud and my personal attorney's email. The previously noisy entryway instantly became so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Several children who had been about to reach out and touch the bluia and white porcelain vase in the entryway immediately pulled their hands back as if they had been shocked. The plastic bag Aunt was holding, covered in mud, was now awkwardly suspended in midair, with nowhere to put it. Mark's smile completely froze on his face. He never imagined that his carefully planned scheme using 15 shameless relatives to torment me and force me to compromise would be locked down before it even began. Captured in the highest resolution lens by the coldest combination of law and data. Jennifer, what do you mean by this? Are you treating your relatives like criminals? Mark gritted his teeth, his face turning pale with anger. Whether we need to guard against thieves depends on whether everyone's hands are clean or not. I looked at the 15 relatives whose expressions had become a fascinating mix of emotions and smiled faintly. Now, please register your identification documents. Anyone who refuses will be reported to the police directly for unlawful entry into a private residence. After registering their ID cards, 15 relatives slumped like deflated balls, dragging their luggage awkwardly toward the guest rooms. In the evening, the originally spacious and bright European-style open kitchen was completely drowned out by the clanging of pots and pans and piercing noise. Uncle, shirtless, sat confidently at the head of the dining table, propping his hairy legs high on the marble countertop, holding a cheap cigarette and flicking ash onto the handcrafted Italian cushion of my custom dining chair. Auntie and Uncle's wife rummaged through the fridge in the kitchen, taking out all my premium Wagyu beef, truffle sauce, and deep-sea cod for entertaining guests, scattering blood-stained mess everywhere on the cutting board. Auntie, there's not even a maid in this villa. That little slut Jennifer is hiding in the study, Auntie shouted loudly, cutting $1,000 soft a kilogram Wagyu beef into large chunks and tossing them carelessly into the pot to stew. Mark, what good is your wife? Our elders are here, and you don't even cook dinner. We have to do it ourselves. Mark sat nearby, face grim. He had suffered multiple embarrassments at the cocktail party and the foyer today and was now boiling with anger. He slammed the table and bellowed toward the kitchen. Jennifer, come out here at once. Our elders need dinner, and you can't even help out. Are your hands made of gold? I pushed open the glass sliding door and calmly stepped inside. I wore a dark, waterproof apron, holding a clean white cloth, with not a speck of grease on my body. Mark, you're shouting so loudly. Do you plan to pay me overtime? I walked to the dining table and looked down at Uncle's filthy feet resting on the chair cushion. Uncle glanced at me sideways, exhaling a thick cloud of smoke directly in my face. Daughter-in-law, don't act like a boss in front of us. Men talk. Women stay out of it. Hurry up and open some bottles of wine over there who want to drink. He pointed to the bottles of Lafite marked with vintages in my wine cabinet. I didn't move, but pulled out my phone from my apron pocket, turned on the camera, and captured several high-definition close-ups of Uncle's foot step on the cushion and the mud lodged in his fingernails. Then, I pointed the camera at the cutting board shredded premium Wagyu beef and the white marble countertop stained with soy sauce. Uncle, this Italian imported handcrafted dining chair has Belgian velvet fabric. Each chair costs $4,200. The ash you dropped has scorched a 1 centimeter hole in the cushion. According to our appraised agreement signed this morning, this counts as malicious damage. I swiped through the phone, displaying the high-definition photos and appraisal report in front of Uncle. Also, that white marble countertop is natural stone, cannot be exposed to strong acids or alkalis. The low-grade aged vinegar Auntie poured earlier has caused irreversible calcium spots on the surface. To repair this countertop, we'd need to hire professional artisans from Italy. The cost is $15,000. You're lying. Uncle flinched and quickly pulled his feet back, almost falling off the chair from the sudden motion. He pointed at me, his finger trembling. It's just a broken chair and a cracked stone. Who are you trying to swindle? Whether it's swindling or not, let the court decide. I turned to look at the Wagyu stewing in the pot. Besides, the ingredients in the refrigerator are public property prepared by my Metropolitan Wine Company for next week's business banquet. Auntie, your Wagyu piece is worth $1 800. The deep sea cod 900. And the truffle sauce 300. Since you've already chopped it, please settle the bill according to the inventory list after you finish eating. You're out of your mind, Auntie screamed, slamming her knife down hard on the cutting board. We are Mark's relatives. You even want money for a little food. Mark, look at the good wife you married. This life is unbearable. Mark suddenly stood up, took a few steps toward me, raised his hand to grab my phone, and growled with bloodshot eyes. Jennifer, that's enough. They're my closest family. How dare you calculate the cost of a few $1,000s worth of meat with them? Where do you think you're putting my face? I slightly tilted my body and swiftly dodged his hand. The sudden movement pulled at my abdominal wound, sending a sharp, piercing pain through me, but my expression remained unchanged. Not even a flicker of a frown. Mark, your face was already lost in the ballroom of the Marriott Hotel, I said coldly, staring at him. This villa's property is entirely mine. Letting them stay here is already out of respect for the law. If you want a free dinner, fine, turn left 2 kilometers and there's a shelter. But here with me, every gram of truffle, every tissue has its price. You treacherous wretch. Helen, my mother-in-law, suddenly rushed forward from behind, holding a basin of dirty water for washing vegetables, and flung it directly at me. My eyes turned icy cold. I grabbed the hot clay pot lid that my uncle had just used and held it firmly in front of me. Splush! The dirty water splashed onto the lid, rebounding along the edges, and most of it sprayed back onto Helen's face and body. Even my uncle's pant leg got soaked extensively. Ah, my eyes! Helen screamed, staggering backward, frantically wiping the dirty water from her face. The kitchen and dining area immediately descended into chaos. Children's cries, adults' curses, and the smashing of dishes echoed all around. I slammed the clay pot lid down onto the countertop with a loud bang, silencing all the noise instantly. Clara, I calmly instructed into my Bluetooth earpiece. Extract the surveillance footage from the kitchen and dining room just now. Capture the scene where my uncle burned the chair cushion, my second aunt damaged the stone, and Helen attempted to assault me. Compile the evidence chain and send it directly to Lawyer Lynn. By tomorrow morning, I want a lawsuit delivered to each of them. After speaking, I ripped off my apron and tossed it onto the messy counter, then turned and walked up the stairs. Sunlight from early morning spilled across the neatly trimmed lawn of the back garden, but the air was thick not with the scent of flowers, but with a suffocating tension. The legal threat from last night had taken immediate effect. 15 relatives, avoiding the high-definition surveillance cameras in the living room with no blind spots, had all gathered early in the shade of the wisteria arbor in the back garden. They huddled around a white cast-iron round table, speaking in hushed tones, their faces etched with anxiety and fear. I carried a cup of black tea and strolled leisurely onto the second-floor balcony, looking down upon them from a height. Big sister-in-law, is what that girl said last night true? She really plans to sue us. Second aunt slapped her thigh, her voice trembling with alarm. I just chopped a few times on the cutting board, and she wants me to pay $15,000. Why doesn't she just rob people? She dares. Mother-in-law Helen ground her teeth, her face as dark as a storm cloud. Mark is the man of this house. If she dares to sue you, I'll have Mark divorce her and leave her with nothing. Come on, Auntie. My younger cousin from third uncle's family piped in, scrolling through his phone. I just checked online. This house is indeed Jennifer's personal property before marriage. If we go to court, it'll be documented. We'll definitely have to pay. I'm not about to get entangled in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit just for a few days of staycation. Seeing the fish had taken the bait, I smiled faintly, turned, and walked down the stairs, pushing open the glass door leading to the back garden. Crack! The sound of the door startled the gathering into silence. All 15 heads turned in unison, staring at me like a monster. I wasn't wearing business attire, only a comfortable silk house dress, and carried a plate of delicate French pastries. I placed them elegantly in the center of the round table. You seem to be having such an animated conversation. Mind if I join? I pulled out a chair and sat down calmly. Jennifer, don't try to pretend you're a good person here. Uncle snorted coldly, turning away. But his eyes kept sneaking toward the plate of enticing pastries. Uncle, I'm only here to help you all resolve the situation. I took a sip of tea, my voice calm and gentle. After all, we're family. I don't want things to end badly, but there are certain matters I must handle according to the rules. After all, our family's financial condition cannot afford any mistakes. Hearing the words financial condition, Second Aunt's ears perked up immediately. What financial condition? Didn't Mark say his tech company is about to go public? He said he was going to make us all rich. Public listing. I chuckled mirthlessly. Shaking my head, I pulled out a stack of deliberately folded documents from my house dress pocket revealing copies of internal financial statements labeled Aurora Tech Financial Warning and threw them carelessly into the center of the table. Everyone, didn't Mark tell you? His Aurora Tech has suffered major losses for 3 consecutive quarters. Last month, he not only mortgaged his apartment, but even tried to apply for a $4 million high-interest loan from the bank in the name of Metropolitan Wine Company. I looked at Helen, whose face had turned deathly pale, and spoke slowly, each word distinct. And on the list of sureties for that loan, Mark listed me, as well as you, Uncle, Second Aunt, Third Uncle, every single one of you. What? Uncle jumped to his feet, knocking over his chair in shock. Joint surety, using our names for a loan. This can't be. My son would never do that to me. Helen screamed, lunging forward to snatch the documents from my hand. I let her take them. Aunt 2, Uncle 3, and their cousin immediately swarmed around. Dozens of eyes fixed intensely on the last page of the document, the list of guarantor intentions. Their real names, ID numbers, and even property registration details, secretly collected by Mark earlier, were clearly listed there. This is real. That's my ID number. Aunt 2's voice suddenly spiked to a piercing scream, sharp enough to rupture eardrums. Mark, you son of a bitch. You owe money yourself, and now you want to drag our entire family down with you. Mrs. You, is this how you raised your son? Uncle Great, his face twisted with fury, turned sharply to glare at Helen. We traveled all the way here by train to support him. And he actually wants us to take on his debt. $4 million. Even if we sold our entire family, we couldn't pay that. Uncle, let me explain. This must be that slut Jennifer's doing, trying to stir up trouble. Helen flailed frantically, beads of cold sweat forming on her forehead. Stirring up trouble. It's got the bank's official red stamp and Mark's own signed authorization. Uncle 3 slammed his palm on the table, making the dessert plates rattle. That's why he was so eager this time, insisted we stay in the villa for a month. It wasn't out of filial piety, wanted to keep us trapped here so we'd sign the loan contract. The entire back garden suddenly turned into a massive market of shouting and chaos. Helen, you give me an explanation today, or I'll never let you off. Aunt 2 snatched Helen by the hair and yanked her backward, shrieking, ouch! Let go. You madwoman, how dare you hit me? Helen screamed back, scratching at Aunt 2's face with sharp nails, leaving bloody streaks. Uncle Great and Uncle 3 began wrestling with each other, knocking over tables and chairs, trampling delicate French desserts into a mess. The children of Uncle Great's family wailed in fear nearby, while the wife of Uncle 3 stomped viciously on Helen's designer handbag while the chaos unfolded. Hit him. Beat him up good. Mark's furious voice suddenly rang out from the second-floor balcony. He had just woken up, still in his pajamas on the terrace, and was stunned by the scene. Furious, he rushed downstairs, trying to pull his mother and sister apart. Everyone stop. What the hell are you doing? Mark roared, but the relatives, completely out of control, paid no attention. A fist from Uncle Great slammed into Mark's eye socket, instantly turning it into a panda eye. Mark, you liar. Give back our hard-earned money. Aunt 2 shrieked, dumping a pot of muddy water used for washing flowers straight onto Mark's head. I held my teacup, silently stood up, and retreated to a safe spot in the garden. Under the sun, Mark lay in the dirt, covered in mud, clutching his eyes and rolling around pathetically, while the family he was most proud of tore into each other like a pack of mad dogs, ruthlessly tearing at each other's last shreds of dignity. After drinking the last drop of tea, I turned and walked into the house, closing the glass door to the back garden with a click. Early in the morning, the heavy double-layered curtains isolated the study from the outside commotion. I sat in my leather office chair, facing a computer screen glowing faintly, displaying real-time surveillance footage of the villa's perimeter. In the front yard, those relatives bruised, disheveled, and battered from last night were hunching over, trying to load their luggage into the car. Their faces were etched with fear. Meanwhile, Mark and Helen were desperately pulling at Uncle and Auntie, trying one last time to retain them. Knock knock. A crisp, rhythmic knocking echoed through the room. My private attorney, Sarah, entered with a steady gait, clad in a sharply tailored dark gray suit, carrying a heavy black briefcase. Jennifer. All the legal documents are ready. The Economic Investigation Bureau and the court have been fully coordinated. Sarah approached the desk and laid out several files stamped with bright red official seals. Today, not one of them will get away. Good. Bring them in. I closed my laptop, my gaze icy. 2 minutes later, the study door was abruptly pushed open. Mark, clutching his black and blue eye socket and still smeared with the mud from the night before, stormed in. Helen followed closely behind, her hair disheveled, her expensive silk pajamas torn. The core relatives Uncle, Auntie, and Uncle Third were also ushered in by security, nervously huddled at the doorway. Jennifer, what did you say to Uncle and the others? Mark slammed his palm on the desk, shouting at me. You forged those bank guarantees and deliberately incited conflict within our family. You evil woman. I'm going to sue you for defamation. Sue me for defamation. I leaned back in my chair without even lifting my eyes, pointing with my finger toward the documents in front of Sarah. Sarah took a step forward, adjusted her glasses, and spoke in an extremely formal, cold tone. Mr. Mark, I am Sarah, attorney in charge of Ms. Jennifer. I now solemnly deliver the following legal documents to you and all present. Sarah picked up the first document and handed it directly to Mark. First, the complaint for divorce and the premarital property preservation order. We have filed for divorce at the High Court, given your alleged forgery of Ms. Jennifer's signature and unauthorized use of the Greater Metropolis Wine Trading Company's official seal during your marriage, attempting to fraudulently procure a $4 million loan from the commercial bank. The court has officially frozen all public accounts under your name, Aurora Technology, as well as all your personal bank cards, securities accounts, and real estate properties at 6 a.m. this morning. What? Mark's face instantly turned deathly pale. His body wobbled violently, nearly losing balance. Second, Sarah gave him no chance to recover, picking up a stack of documents and handing them to Uncle, Auntie, and Uncle Third at the doorway. The eviction notice for unauthorized residential occupation and the complaint for malicious property damage and compensation, according to the Civil Code and local property management regulations. This villa is Ms. Jennifer's private premarital investment property. The 15 individuals present here forcibly occupied the premises without written permission from the owner, and in the face of the owner's explicit refusal. Their actions constitute illegal occupation. You are now given 30 minutes to pack up your belongings and leave. Otherwise, law enforcement will carry out forced eviction. Furthermore, Sarah pointed at the figures on the document. Your uncle is suspected of damaging imported dining chairs worth $4,200. Your aunt is suspected of damaging natural stone countertops worth $15,000. And your uncle's child is suspected of tearing up a limited edition tapestry worth $8,000. All damages are backed by 4K surveillance footage. We demand that you compensate the total sum of $39,000 within 10 business days. If the payment is not made on time, We will directly apply for enforcement, freezing all your properties and pension accounts. The study fell into absolute silence, so quiet that one could hear the falling of a needle. Only a few heavy, panicked breaths could be heard. Pay 39,000, and freeze my pension. The aunt's legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the carpet, wailing loudly. Sister-in-law, Mark, didn't you say we came here to enjoy life? You're trying to drive us to death. Jennifer, you slut. I'm your mother-in-law. Are you trying to kick me out too? Helen screamed like a madwoman, her long fingernails lunging toward my face. Two black-clad bodyguards standing by the door moved instantly. In a sharp, efficient motion, they grabbed Helen's arms, twisted them behind her back, and slammed her hard against the wall. Mrs. Helen, please remain calm, Sarah said coldly, watching her. The camera is recording continuously. If you continue with any physical confrontation, it will directly constitute intentional assault, and we won't mind letting you spend the weekend in jail. Helen was pinned to the wall, groaning in pain, and dared not move again. I slowly stood up and walked to Mark, whose face was pale as death. Mark, yesterday you said no one would wait for me, right? I looked into his eyes, filled with fear and rage, and a cruel smile curled at the corner of my lips. Now, I'll return those same words to you. The law won't wait for you, and the creditors of Metropolitan Corporation won't wait for you either. I turned around and gestured to the bodyguards. In half an hour, throw out everyone not belonging to this house along with their trash. Outside the glass curtain wall, dark clouds hung low, and heavy rain poured down, the dense drops pounding violently against the tempered glass, producing a dull, suffocating sound. Inside the CEO's office of Aurora Tech, chaos reigned. Documents on the desk were scattered haphazardly. Several drawers forcibly pulled open, their personal belongings spilling across the floor. Mark, wearing a wrinkled shirt with his collar unbuttoned and hair disheveled, was frantically rummaging through the safe. Damn it. Where's the company seal? Where's the core financial USB drive? He raged, tossing a stack of cancelled contracts onto the floor with savage force. There's no need to look. They're all right here. A calm female voice echoed through the otherwise silent office. Mark whipped around as if electrocuted. I was sitting in his large, leather-covered office chair, dressed in a sharply tailored white suit. I had my hands neatly crossed over my abdomen. Beside me stood Clara, expression cold and stern. In the office's reception area sat 5 people in dark uniforms, seriously serious in countenance, 3 men and 2 women. The head of the loan department of the Metropolitan Commercial Bank, officers from the Municipal Economic Investigation Unit, and 2 major investor representatives of Aurora Tech. Jennifer, how are you even here? Mark's voice cracked with extreme terror and rage as he pointed at me, his finger trembling violently. This is my company. You're committing illegal entry. Get out right now. Illegal entry. I leaned slightly forward, placing a black USB drive and a stack of audit reports stamped with the company seal gently onto the desk. Mark, due to continuous false profit reporting and fraudulent commercial contracts to defraud loans over the last 3 quarters, the board of directors just this morning unanimously passed a resolution to remove you from your position as CEO. As the legal representative of Metropolitan Wine Trade and the largest creditor of Aurora Tech, I am now taking lawful control of this company. You're lying. I'm the founder. No one can remove me, Mark shouted hysterically, lunging forward attempting to snatch the USB drive from the table. 2 towering security guards moved instantly, forming a solid block in front of the desk, slamming Mark violently against the edge of the polished marble tabletop. Let me go. Jennifer, you venomous bitch. You set me up. Mark's face pressed tightly against the cold stone surface, his eyes bloodshot from the strain. Set you up. I stood up and walked toward him, staring down at his face, contorted with fury and fear. Clara, read it to him. Clara stepped forward, opened the folder in her hand, and spoke with crystal clear precision, her voice cutting through the storm outside. Mr. Mark. Based on our data recovery from Aurora Tech's backend servers, along with the bank transaction records provided by the commercial bank, over the past year, you've abused your position to siphon a total of $1 million from the company's funds. Among that, $5 million wasn't used for company RD but was funneled through underground money circuits into shell high-interest loan companies under the names of your uncle, aunt, and third uncle for illegal lending and money laundering for profit. Hearing the words money laundering and illegal lending, the economic investigation officers seated nearby immediately stood up, their expressions cold as they displayed their work uniforms and arrest warrants. Mr. Mark, we are from the Municipal Public Security Bureau's Economic Investigation Unit. You are suspected of contract fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. The evidence chain is now complete. Please come with us for investigation. No. This isn't true. That money was investment. Family trust. Mark frantically struggled, buttons popping off his shirt, falling to the floor with sharp, ringing sounds. He looked desperately at the two investor representatives seated nearby. Old Zhang. Old Li. Help me. We've worked together for 5 years. I've been framed by this woman. The two investors turned away without expression, not even bothering to look at him. Mark, you embezzled company funds to lend at usurious interest rates to your relatives, causing the company's financial chain to completely collapse. If Jennifer hadn't injected capital in time and taken over the debt, we'd all be dragged into hell because of you. Old Zhang snorted coldly, his tone full of disgust. Jennifer, I'm begging you. Seeing the situation was hopeless, Mark's body went limp and he collapsed to his knees, trying to crawl toward my feet. He raised his head, tears mixing with grime on his face, looking utterly desperate. We're husband and wife. I did all this for our future. I was just too eager to prove myself. Forgive me just this once, and I'll have my uncle and the others return the money. Let us start over. Okay. I stepped back, avoiding his hand reaching for my trouser leg, and looked down at him from above. Mark, when you brought a lawyer to force me to sign a property waiver in the hospital ward, and when you coldly told me at the entrance, no one will wait for you, you should have known this day would come. I adjusted the cuff of my suit and walked toward the office door, without looking back. Take him away. At the moment, the cold silver handcuffs clicked shut around Mark's wrists. He collapsed to the ground in utter despair. At both ends of the long solid wood table in the mediation room, the division was starkly clear, clad in a black cashmere coat. I sat gracefully in the plaintiff's seat. Sarah sat beside me, with a neatly stacked dozen thick evidence folders beside her. On the defendant's side, the arrogance that had once characterized Mark was now completely gone. Dressed in an orange prison jumpsuit and handcuffed, his once neat hair now messy like straw, Mark slumped deeply in his chair, his eyes lifeless. Helen sat behind him, her hair turned mostly white in just half a month, wearing cheap, outdated clothes, fidgeting anxiously with her hands. Outside the door, my aunts and eldest uncle stood anxiously and fearfully peering through the frosted glass window, but were blocked by stern bailiffs. Plaintiff, please state your final demands, the presiding judge commanded with solemn authority, his voice echoing through the empty room. Sarah stood up, flipping open the complaint, her voice crisp and sharp. Your Honor, based on the completed investigation by economic security authorities, bank records, and audiovisual evidence from the scene, we claim, first, we seek approval for the divorce between plaintiff Ms. Jennifer and defendant Mr. Mark, due to the defendant's malicious fraud during the marriage, including asset transfer, forged signatures, and fraudulent loan applications. In accordance with the Civil Code's principle of protecting the non-offending party, we request that defendant Mark be ordered to leave with nothing, and that all remaining shares in Aurora Tech under his name and all real estate be liquidated to fully compensate for the losses incurred by the plaintiff's company. Second, Sarah pulled out a stack of documents stamped with the red seal of the Economic Security Bureau. Defendant Mark, alongside his uncle, aunts, uncles, and 15 other relatives, engaged in high-interest loan reissuance through shell companies. We request the court declare this illegal debt contract invalid on the spot, recover the $1.5 million in illicit gains funneled to the relatives' accounts, and freeze and auction the joint real estate under their possession. After hearing this, Helen, sitting behind the defendant's bench, completely collapsed. She jumped up, gripping the mediation table, screaming at me, "Jennifer, you cruel woman, $1.5 million. Are you trying to force our entire family to jump off a building? Even if Mark was at fault, he was your husband. How can you be so heartless?" Order. The presiding judge struck the gavel heavily, and 2 bailiffs immediately stepped forward, grabbing Helen's shoulders and forcing her back into her seat. Slowly, I raised my gaze, meeting Helen's eyes filled with despair and resentment. My expression remained calm. "Helen, when you and your family took my house as a free hotel, recklessly trampling on my private property, and even pressured me to sign away my assets in the hospital, did you ever consider letting me live?" I turned my head to look at Mark, who sat in silence, trembling uncontrollably. "Mark, do you have anything to say?" Mark slowly lifted his head. His lips were cracked, his voice as rough as 2 pieces of sandpaper rubbing together. "Jennifer, I surrender. Please spare my mother and my relatives. I'll take all the blame alone. Please. This isn't a deal. Mark, it's justice," I said, closing the collar of my coat, my gaze cold and devoid of warmth. 2 hours later, the gavel fell heavily. The verdict is as follows. Divorce is granted. All assets under the defendant Mark's name shall be used to settle debts of Metropolitan Company. His actions are suspected of criminal offenses and will be transferred to judicial authorities for prosecution. Defendant Helen, along with the defendant's eldest uncle and aunts, 15 individuals in total have been found guilty of intentionally encroaching upon and damaging the property of others. They are ordered to return the illicit gains and compensation amounting to $1.55 million within 10 business days. Those who refuse to comply will, by law, be listed the list of dishonest judgment debtor, with restrictions on high consumption and forced auction of their assets. As the presiding judge's cold voice fell, Helen's desperate sobs echoed from the defendant's seat, and screams of shock rang out from outside the window as auntie and uncle collapsed to the ground. I stood up, not casting another glance at the chaos behind me. Anne, under the escort of bodyguards, walked firmly out of the courthouse. The sky was a clear, pristine blue, and the afternoon sunlight poured unobstructed onto the spacious marble-paved terrace. A gentle breeze swept by, brushing the loose strands of hair beside my ears. I held a glass of vintage champagne newly imported by Metropolitan Company. Standing at the edge of the 36th floor rooftop and looking down at the city's towering skyscrapers and the streams of traffic flowing like colonies of ants below. The wounds from my minimally invasive surgery had completely healed long ago. My back was perfectly straight as I felt the low, glossed ease and freedom. Knock. Knock. Clara walked quickly toward me in elegant high heels. She held several freshly printed documents in her hand, her face filled with an uncontrollable smile. "Jennifer, I just received news from the court." Clara's voice was full of satisfaction. "Because they failed to repay the $1.55 million in compensation and illicit gains within the required period. The properties under the names of your uncle and second aunt have been legally seized by the court. The first round of judicial auctions will be held next week. Their entire family has now been kicked out of their house and is crammed into the cheapest low-rent housing on the outskirts of the city. Every day, they blame, shove, and shirk responsibility onto each other. Their home is in complete chaos, with fights breaking out constantly. What about Helen?" I took a sip of champagne, my expression calm. Helen tried to secretly sell the jewelry under an anonymous identity, but Attorney Lynn caught her red-handed. The court directly ruled that she had maliciously transferred assets, and she was placed under judicial detention this morning. Clara handed me a photograph. As for Mark, because multiple crimes were combined and the amount involved was enormous, He was sentenced to 11 years in prison in the first trial yesterday afternoon. This is the letter he had someone smuggle out from the detention center. I took the letter. The envelope was marked to Jennifer, but the handwriting was crooked and awkward. A far cry from the dignity he once carried. Without even opening it, I pinched the letter between 2 fingers and casually tossed it into the paper shredder buzzing in the corner of the terrace. Amid the harsh sound of shredding, those hypocritical pleas for mercy and empty confessions instantly turned into worthless scraps of paper. Also, this is the exclusive long-term strategic cooperation contract just sent over by the headquarters of Chateau Lafite Rothschild in Bordeaux, France. Clara handed me a brand new English contract. Her expression excited. Mr. Thomas not only increased our orders for next quarter by 50%, but also introduced several of his multinational retail partners to us. Metropolitan Wine Company is now, without a doubt, the leading company in the industry across the entire province. I took the fountain pen and signed my powerful, confident name at the bottom of the contract. Jennifer. The moment I closed the folder, I faced the wind and raised my champagne glass high, offering a toast to the distant horizon. Above the ruins, I had personally cut down every thorn in my path. From this day forward, in this business empire I built with my own hands, I was the only and undisputed queen.